Hey, Boise. Before we get into today's show, I have a favor to ask. We need 100 people to fill out our quick listener survey. It's easy and fun and about making our show even better and more useful for you. It's all multiple choice and it won't take more than 5 minutes. I know because I actually timed it. Plus, anyone who takes the survey will be eligible to win a $250 Visa gift card. Visit citycast.fm/survey right now. That's citycast.fm/survey. Today on CityCast Boise, it's your Friday news download. Rachel Spacek with the Idaho Statesman is here to give us the latest on the city's wild housing market. From rental assistance drying up to why homeowners might actually save money on their taxes this year, there's a lot to sift through. Plus, is Meridian kind of jealous of the Greenbelt? It's Friday, June 2nd. I'm Frankie Barnhill, filling in for Emma Arnold, and this is what Boise's talking about. All right, it's Friday, and I'm here with Rachel Spacek from the Idaho Statesman. Hey, Rachel, how are you?
Hey, Frankie, doing well. Happy Friday.
Yay. Well, before we get into the weekend, let's talk about some news. You've been writing some really interesting housing articles. You always do. But one that I wanted to talk about specifically was this story about rental assistance. And this has been a big thing, a big deal for people during COVID. This rental assistance program in Ada County has really helped a lot of folks out. But it's going away now, right? That money's running out. What's going on?
Yeah, so the money that the Boise City Ada County Housing Authority has been distributing is part of a couple different COVID relief packages from the federal government, basically aimed at during COVID, people would get sick and not come into work and then, not get a full paycheck and then not be able to pay their rent. Lots of people lost their jobs, things like that. So that was kind of what it was aimed to do. And the demand has been so high for that assistance for the last 3 years that, they kind of renewed it. But those renewals are over and the Housing Authority, at least, is expecting to run out of rental assistance for Boise and Ada County residents later this month, now that we're in June.
Wow. And so can you give a sense for what's the average amount people were getting? Did it depend on need, I assume? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it depended on need. People would get up to 15 months of their rent covered. So it kind of depended on your rent. For the story I wrote with my coworker, Kevin Fixler, on this, we talked to 2 different renters. One, she was in Meridian, lived in a townhouse. I think she paid $1,700 a month for her townhouse in Meridian. And then we talked to Alexandria, who paid, I think, $1,200, a little over $1,200 for a studio in Boise. So they both got help. They both got 15 months of their rent paid for by this program. So it kind of depended on what your need was. And then the Meridian townhouse renter, she, Jessica Thompson, she kind of had some months that she did pay, some months that the rental assistance paid for, just so she could kind of save in the months that the rental assistance covered.
Sure, to kind of get ahead, because then, of course, inflation happened and so many other pressures on people's budgets, renters in particular. Anything more about the stories of the two people that you profiled to illustrate this kind of wonky policy story, but it does affect real people in our community? How did they get in this position?
Yeah, I think one of my big takeaways from talking to people about, their rent and this rental assistance is we're kind of at a point in Boise where rents are so high that even if You have, Jessica Thompson works at Sensi where she makes like a little bit over $15 an hour. And even though she goes to work every day, she's a single mom with two kids, she can't afford that $1,700,
Yeah.
So it's not, this was aimed to help people struggling from COVID impact. But at this point, it's kind of helping people who just are not making enough money to pay the rising rents in Boise and the Treasure Valley.
Yeah. And I suppose in some ways that's connected. I mean, COVID helped to raise the prices because many, we saw that influx of people who moved to the Treasure Valley, which meant that home values went up and meant that rents went up and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it is and it isn't connected to the pandemic because at the same time, even prior to COVID, we were seeing rents go up and wages stay stagnant. So hearing that, $15 an hour is an amount that people years ago definitely, would think in Boise you could get by or in Meridian, right? But not so much anymore. Not at all, really.
Yeah. And I mean, just like you said, I feel like you can't really draw a line between things now that are impacted by COVID and not. Like, I just feel like everything is
Yeah.
pretty much there. But yeah, a little bit more about the people we talked to, because I think that's what really puts this story in perspective is the human element. Jessica Thompson has two young children, and we talked about inflation. She is having to buy food for three mouths to feed, and I know your listeners and you've probably gone to the grocery store recently and like you can't really spend less than $100 no matter what. So
Yep.
it's like, yeah. So, she's having to pay that. She's been thinking about maybe getting a second job on top of that Sensi job. But, that would take away from her time with her kids because, she wants to still be a mom. This isn't all in the story, but I talked to her for a while. She talks about the impact of having to cut back on expenses on her family. Her kids ask her for, lessons or things that maybe other wealthier kids are their families are paying for. And, she's has to say, oh, maybe in my next paycheck, or let's go to the park instead because it's free. So, that seems like a little thing, but it really struck me that this is kind of impacting her entire family.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm really glad you're putting that human element to it. I mean, I think about people I knew who were laid off or who needed to leave their work. You mentioned, folks who got COVID and they're working hourly jobs that don't have sick time, and then they're not making enough money to cover it. So at this stage, can people still apply for assistance? It's running out at the end of June, so probably not, or can they still try to apply?
You can still try to apply on the Housing Authority's website. People know that this is running out, so I think demand is going to be quite high. I just heard of a renter who I think is going to, or probably already tried to apply for assistance for June rent. So, it's going to be really tight. And, we talked to Kevin Fixler, talked to Ali Robbie, who is the executive director of Jesse Tree. And, they're kind of expecting to have to kind of pick up where this rental assistance is leaving off. They handle evictions and kind of eviction mediation, and they're saying that evictions are increasing in both Ada and Canyon County, and she's expecting that to go up, things like that, and it's really hard what comes next after this. I think it's going to be really hard. Ali Robbie is really pushing for some kind of more permanent fund for rental assistance. This would have to probably be passed on a state level by the Idaho legislature. So, she's pushing for that because just it shows that the fact that there are so many people who needed the emergency rental assistance that, there is a need out there, especially in the Treasure Valley.
Yeah, really proving the need through this process, this fund that's been available for the last year or so, more than that. And of course, yeah, she has some power in this as a senator in the state house. So it does kind of speak to this larger housing crisis, though, right, Rachel? Especially for renters, that we've seen, again, housing prices and rental prices go up so much. And they did kind of take a little bit, they have gone down a tiny bit over the last year. But I mean, we're still talking about prices that we haven't seen in previous years. Meanwhile, wages aren't keeping up to pace, inflation, all of that. So it's just a tough time still to be a renter in Boise. And it doesn't seem like it's getting much better. If anything, it might be getting worse, especially with this fund going away.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the other sources we talked to for this story, Alexandria Van Zeff, they said their mother lives in Nissa, Oregon, and pays $800 for like a rental house, $800 per month for a house to rent.
Mm,
And so they're kind of over here in a studio for 1200, and they're kind of like,
wow.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
So yeah,
God. Yeah.
these rents are still really high for people who maybe have lived here for a while and are used to paying, that $800. Like I rented a place, I think I like 2 years ago, and it was around like $800, $900. And now I don't think anything is going for that
Mm,
price anymore.
no, I don't think so either.
Yeah. So, I know that they may be going down slightly, but, there's still such high demand. And as we know, as demand goes up, prices can be pushed up because, there's not a lot of places for people to find. So, Boise's still growing population wise. So there are still a lot of people looking for rental properties.
Hey, CityCast Boise, it's Michael Ziviak. While CityCast Boise works hard every day to connect you with the stories that matter most, I'm working in the background to make sure that our listeners are connecting with the best that Boise has to offer. So what does that look like? It means meeting with the people who make Boise what it is. The business owners, the stakeholders, the decision makers. The Boiseans who put together those food festivals you enjoy, the concerts you attend, the exhibits you can't miss, and who make those candles your mom can't stop talking about. If this sounds like you, let me help you get your message out to the city's best audience with an ad right here on CityCast Boise and on our sister daily newsletter, Hey Boise. Shoot me an email at ads@citycast.fm and let's connect.
This episode is brought to you by Global X ETFs. Start your investing journey by exploring exchange-traded funds. Exchange-traded funds, more commonly known as ETFs, create baskets of stocks, bonds, and other assets that you can buy in a single trade. At Global X, they specialize in ETFs that track emerging technologies, like the rise of electric vehicles, as well as strategies aimed to potentially generate income, and much more. To discover how you can add ETFs to your portfolio, visit globalxetfs.com.
Okay, switching from the rental market to homeowners. Homeowners, of course, have also had a really challenging time in the Treasure Valley with property values that have, skyrocketed in the last decade or so. And for people, especially on fixed incomes, that means their taxes are higher, which means that'll be a little bit tougher to stretch and actually make those tax bills. But there's some good news here. I understand what's going on with property assessments.
Yeah. So basically since COVID, I think before COVID, property values were steadily increasing in the Treasure Valley. But when COVID hit, it kind of pushed everything insanely high. Even last year in Canyon County, like property assessed values were up by 60% in some cases. Like that's almost, for many people, that's double what they saw their values the year before. So it's kind of crazy. And basically to kind of explain this a little bit, this is if you have a house that you paid, $300,000 for, very rare in the area now. But
Yeah.
just because demand and home sales were more frequent and prices were much higher, that has led to even if you're not selling, that's led to an increase in value of your home. So that's kind of what we were seeing. But the kind of good news is that property assessments are down a little bit in both Ada County and Canyon County. Ada County, they're down by around 13%. Canyon, I think 3 to 5%. So, you might see a little bit lower assessed value this year for homeowners, and that it depends on budgets by cities and counties, which come out in August. But people are saying, experts are saying that this might be a decrease in property taxes slightly.
Gotcha. Right. So still need to wait to hear what all the different municipalities in Ada County, et cetera, are planning on doing, and Canyon County are planning on doing, but with their budgets. But could mean that people will actually not be spending quite as much on their taxes this coming year if they're a homeowner.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing that's different this year, as property values for homeowners are kind of decreasing, there's still a lot of demand for, businesses, office spaces, industrial, warehouse type things. So those property values are going up. So, I think a lot of tax experts are hoping that maybe this means a shift in the property tax burden to these businesses and commercial properties, which can, typically pay more in property taxes than homeowners. So that's a lot. That's also some good news because we've seen, homeowners for the last many years having to pay a lot of that property tax burden when commercial properties aren't having to pay as much.
Gotcha. Okay, so a little bit of a shift from homeowners to the commercial. So the Ada County assessor goes out, they assess all the home values. Is it that the market is just kind of balancing out, coming home to earth after we saw that insanity with home buying and selling in recent years? And so they're going, okay, but what is the real value of this property now? How does that work? I know that's a really complicated question, I'm sure.
Basically, and this is kind of what the assessor told me, the assessments are all based on what's happening in the private market. So the reason why values were so high during COVID was because the demand was pushing those prices up. We saw those bidding wars. We saw homes that maybe were listed for $400,000 being pushed up to 5 or more. And so that was pushing up values for everyone else. So now it's kind of prices are kind of evening out. There haven't been as many home sales as we've seen during COVID. And that's kind of what is making the property values kind of more even, is basically what's happening in the private market. And one of the reasons the Canyon County assessor told me this might be happening is because, as we know, during COVID, interest rates were really low. So people who might not normally have felt like they could afford a mortgage every month kind of realized that they could, or that it would be similar to renting and paying rent every month. So they were starting to buy houses, and now interest rates are higher. So, it might not be as similar to what you're used to paying rent wise. So that's kind of deterred some people from, going into that buyer's market.
Gotcha. Right. So in some ways, this is kind of a lagging indicator because we've seen in the last year, home prices have started going down. Like when I scroll on Zillow, it's not quite as crazy and houses are staying on the market for a little bit longer. It still is a seller's market overall. It's not considered balanced, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this assessment comes after that. That makes sense. Okay. So What else are you thinking about since you cover rentals and the housing market in general around the Treasure Valley? Like, what are you looking out for in the next 6 months, 6 or 12 months that could make things better or worse again?
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to look at. Right before we started recording, you mentioned that KTVB story about the price of rent going down slightly. That might be something to look at. I know the city of Boise is really trying to kind of push these market rate, more affordable rentals. I see the mayor on Twitter, really kind of talking about these apartments, buildings that are going up and how many there are that will be reserved for people who make below the area median income. So that is some positive news that I'm watching. I did a series now, like a year, maybe 2 years ago, where I talked to people who were, in various degrees struggling with our affordable housing crisis in the Treasure Valley. And, I've kind of started revisiting some of those stories. And some are more positive than others. I've heard of kind of a large portion of people in Meridian who are living at a KOA, like camping RV park. So,
Oh, yeah.
people are kind of resorting to other means than, paying rent, which, it's kind of interesting what people are making work in the valley.
Yeah, gosh, there's just so much churn, so many different facets of it. So thanks for following it so closely. I would like to, talk about another story that I saw you did recently. This one in Meridian specifically. Is Meridian jealous of the Greenbelt? That's my question. What are they looking to do with paths?
Yeah, they didn't mention specifically the Boise Greenbelt, but that's what you think of, especially when I think of people maybe doing an alternative commute. I live on the bench, so like I can commute on the Greenbelt on my bike,
Yeah.
downtown pretty easily. And that's kind of what Meridian's goal is. They have these kind of pieces of pathways in different parts of the neighborhood, or different, newer subdivisions that have gone up, and they put in part of a path. But what the city council really wants is kind of a way of connecting all the paths. And, I'm sure we've all like driven through Meridian on Eagle Road, like, and
Oh,
seen the,
yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
chaos that is the traffic in that city. So, they're really kind of trying to push alternative forms of commutes and transportation. So yeah, basically
Hmm.
they're trying to tell people, there may be a way for you to avoid traffic entirely, and that is riding your bike or a scooter or whatever on these paths.
Huh. Wow. Yeah, I mean, this could be really exciting for anybody in Meridian who doesn't want to always use their car. But I mean, I don't know. Meridian is so car dependent. I guess it's the chicken and the egg thing. Like, if there are alternative methods, then people will hopefully use them. Or is it just, the culture of that city is to be so car dependent, and the streets are kind of built for that, for cars. So it seems like the city government's really trying to at least create an alternative that could get more people out of their cars.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing that I kind of covered in my last story, which I wrote because they had a meeting, the city council had a meeting on it. They are also kind of trying to have a public, basically trying to inform the public that these paths are there. You don't just have to get in your car. And, we'll see if that works, because like you said, I've done stories, I've looked at some data. Lots of people drive to work in Meridian. It's very car dependent, not a lot of carpooling, lots of single drivers. So, I think the city is kind of having to push that, kind of do a little public relations and push that, we do have paths, they are connected. You can get from downtown, over to 10 Mile or things like that. I think that's what they're really trying to do is get that the public to understand that these paths are there.
Well, that'll be interesting to watch and see how many people are on those paths instead of on the roads. I'd love to end on what I'm calling my moment of zen or our moment of joy this week. Something that, maybe brought you a little bit of joy. Rachel, do you have anything off the top of your head?
Yeah, so I kind of recently-ish just moved to the bench, and I'm pretty sure you guys have done an episode on CityCast about how maybe food in Boise is not, up there on.
We're not making all the national lists all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I tweeted that I feel like people on the bench were gatekeeping that Boise actually has good food, because I've had amazing food up here. Yesterday I ordered Goodness Land, and they have like this whole delicious falafel plate for pretty cheap, and Foodland, and there's a really good Thai place up here. So that's what's bringing me joy, is that Boise has actual good food, and it's now in my neighborhood.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Yeah. Maybe gatekeeping on the bench. Maybe we've been sleeping on it. I think there's definitely something to that. Oh, man. Now I want falafel for lunch today.
So good.
That sounds fantastic. My moment of joy was watching videos from the city of Boise, point of view video of kids running through the new Ann Morrison Park fountain, which they just opened and dedicated this week. And it was on one of the rainy days, and it didn't stop kids in their, cute little swimming suits running through the new fountain. And it just was so joyful. And clearly that's going to be a hot spot this summer for families to hang out around that new fountain for sure. Did you see these videos?
Yes. And I can't wait for like the kids and dogs, peak summer, to be running through those fountains.
Yeah, the dogs that are just like gobbling up the water as it comes out of the little sprays. I know, I can't wait to. Definitely taking my dog down there. She's going to go crazy. Well, thanks so much, Rachel, for helping round out some great stories that you've been doing recently, and we'll link to all of them in the show notes. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Frankie.
Thanks for listening to CityCast Boise. The show's produced by host Emma Arnold, Evelyn Avitia, and me, Frankie Barnhill. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by local band Up Is the Down Is The. If you're looking for a nostalgia bomb this weekend, join us in rewatching 2004's cult classic Napoleon Dynamite. Blake, Emma, Evelyn, and I are going to be talking about the Idaho-filmed movie next week. Have a memory about it to share? Email us, boise@citycast.fm. We'll be back on Monday. See you then.